This week on Culture Q,
we tell you about JVN's new Netflix show,
a conversation with filmmaker Thomas Allen Harris,
and Amy Schneider gets the Jeopardy send-off she deserves.
What is going on? It is Andy Lawani here.
And I'm Shira Lazar. This is Culture Q.
And here's some of the highlights this week in queer culture. Get ready to scream, yes honey, because everyone's favorite non-binary TV personality, Jonathan Van Ness, is back with a brand new show on Netflix. You probably know them from their other wildly popular Netflix show, Queer Eye, where they serve as the grooming specialist. But Van Ness is starting a new adventure with the streaming platform in their new show, Getting Curious.
Hi, I'm Jonathan Van Ness. I got burning questions and I need answers. Why is hair so major? Am I dependent on snacks? Are bugs gorgeous or gross?
In a 6-episode series, which is a spin-off of their popular podcast of the same name, JVN spends time talking with experts in various fields, exploring everything from skyscrapers to figure skating, a topic they explored a lot in their 2019 book, Over the Top. But the episode that has everybody talking is actually a topic that's very personal to them, living outside the binary.
We exist, and that's not political, it's factual. We exist, and that's natural. What is political is making people fit into boxes.
The importance of representation is at the heart of this episode. Van Ness was quoted saying, "I wanted to show just how human we are and how common we are. We've been around for thousands of years. Being non-binary isn't new." And representation and inclusion is something that's been at the forefront of the conversation surrounding Netflix, as the Human Rights Campaign's most recent Corporate Equality Index left the company off the list completely. For the first time in 5 years, the streaming giant is not considered one of the best places to work for LGBTQ people, after the controversy surrounding Dave Chappelle's anti-trans special, The Closer, and the company's poor handling of the situation. Netflix and the HRC have been having conversations about corporate equality, so hopefully with shows like Getting Curious, we'll start to see a change.
Yes, 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 yes.
And if you're looking for a little more JVN in your life, you can find all 6 episodes of Getting Curious streaming right now, only on Netflix.
The DC Universe got a little bit queer this week. From introducing us to their first asexual character to casting the first trans actress in a DC Comics live-action film. And it all happened in the latest episode of the CW's Legends of Tomorrow, where viewers were delighted to find that fan-favorite character, Esperanza Spooner Cruz, played by Lizeth Chavez, is asexual.
I don't really get those types of feelings for anyone.
And this scene specifically is getting a lot of praise for approaching the topic in a compassionate and authentic way.
What you're describing is totally normal. It just means maybe you're asexual.
Now, this is a huge step forward, as there's very little on-screen ace representation, and the fans are here for it. This person tweeted, "Spooner being ace, beep, living, beep, yes." And over to DC's cinematic universe, where they've made a big casting announcement that has made Batgirl her story. The film, which is set to star Leslie Grace in the starring role, just added trans actress Ivory Aquino to the roster, making her the first ever openly trans character set to appear in a DC live-action movie. Best known for her role as transgender activist Cecilia Chung in the docudrama When We Rise, Aquino will portray Alicia Yeoh, Batgirl's best friend and roommate.
You want to be my daughter? I always was.
The character first appeared in a Batman comic book all the way back in 2011, and it has taken over 10 years for this representation to leap off the page. The comic's author Gail Simone talked about the importance of including this character in the DC universe, saying this: "Why in the world can we not do a better job of representation of not just humanity, but also our own loyal audience?"
It's Black History Month, and we will be highlighting creators in the community making a difference. And this week, I got the opportunity to sit down with filmmaker Thomas Allen Harris to talk about his films Vintage, Families of Value, and About Face. Let's take a look.
I was upset when I first found out you were gay, because of the future that I thought that it held for you, in terms of permanent relationships and society and so forth and so on.
I want to talk about Vintage. It was your first film, is that correct?
Yes, Vintage was my first feature documentary.
What kind of community storytelling journey did that put you on, like being your first film?
This is like during the time in the 90s when there was the new queer cinema, and queer film festivals were just beginning to like really explode, and a lot of people were thinking about like queerness as like away from the families, like they'd have to leave their families. But I grew up in a family. I had one other queer sibling, and I had a great aunt who was queer, and so I was just like, wow, well, why not make a film that like looked at the family?
And how did that project, obviously you have like a major project to start your career, how did it shape the rest of your films, like going forward?
Well, it made me realize how much like the camera as a tool for social change was so powerful. And so with each of my films, I've been very interested in how to use the process of filmmaking to transform the people I'm working with, like intentionally. The people that went through the process of Vintage, they all came out on the other side just a little bit like healthier. Their relationships came out a little bit healthier. They were able to have these conversations, and not have like, all this resentment that had been building from like, 2 years old or whatever. It does have that intention of like, okay, we could do something together to create something new.
And do you think that bringing your intersectionality of being Black and queer has really like changed a lot of people's perception with the work you've done?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I still get emails and texts, about how people are transformed, both by being in the projects, but also by watching the projects. Like a lot of people watch my films and say, Thomas, your film's cousin the viewer. So it like makes the viewer kind of feel like a cousin, and that's like such a big tribute to me. That's like more important than any major award ceremony or whatever. But it has had a major impact. I mean, in the last like 3 years, one of my films I made in Brazil has been written about in 3 different books. One book that was published on the continent of Africa. One book that was published that was by a Brazilian author. Another by African American author. And so all of my films have also been about the idea of like looking at a particular issue through queer eyes, through a kind of diasporic. I mean, you could say I'm Black or African diasporic, but I feel like it's more like I'm diasporic, and I have a relationship with Africa, with Brazil. I have a relationship with Latin identity, through Brazil and through my connections with Afro Latinos. And so I try to bring all of that to bear in my films. And also accepting. When I make a film, I try to really be embracing of difference, even if that difference is like, on the other side of the aisle in terms of, politically, whatever that happens to be. And, and just try to understand and create a way for a kind of movement, a flow of information.
Thanks again to Thomas Allen Harris for taking the time to chat with me today. And remember, you can check out Vintage, Families of Value, and About Face streaming right here on Reverie.
And now it's time to take a look at some LGBTQ news happening around the world. We've got some good news coming out of France this week as they join the growing number of countries banning conversion therapy. It will now carry a penalty of up to 3 years in prison and fines. Medical professionals found guilty could have their medical license stripped for 10 years. President Emmanuel Macron celebrated with this tweet, "Let's be proud these unworthy practices have no place in the Republic, because being yourself is not a crime, because there is nothing to be cured." Oui, très bien, félicitations. And now, America, it's time to catch up. Because now, moving on to Mississippi, where a mayor has been accused of withholding $110,000 from a public library because they carry LGBTQ books. According to NBC affiliate WLBT, Ridgeland Mayor Gene McGee reportedly said that he had received complaints from citizens about 3 children's books and 1 adult book that featured members of the LGBTQ community, which led to the discrimination. Ultimatum. Madison County Library System has since released a statement on its website saying that its mission is to, quote, provide library resources and services for people of all ages, races, gender identities, expressions, and orientations. And finally, ending on a historic high note. Melanie Willingham Jaggers has been appointed as the executive director of GLSEN, making them the first Black and first non-binary director of the LGBTQ Educational Advocacy Organization.
It's an honor to become GLSEN's new director and partner with community leaders like you in our fight to improve education for all students.
Now you're probably thinking, what are you gonna watch after our show? But lucky for you, we have tons of things for you to stream right here on Reverie. First up, you might remember from our amazing interview earlier with Thomas Allen Harris. It's his film Vintage Families of Value. The documentary explores the lives of Black queer Americans. Following 3 sets of LGBT siblings, we get a powerful look at the intersection of race, sexuality, and family dynamics in the Black community. Next up is Single Record, a series starring Nelson Moses Lassiter. The 6-episode arc tells the story of a young rapper navigating the volatile music industry after reaching his dream of having a hit song, which then forces him to confront his family, identity, and sexuality. And as always, you can find these 2 titles and more streaming now right here on Reverie.
Finally, we couldn't end the show without giving Amy Schneider the Jeopardy send-off she deserves. Schneider had 40 consecutive wins that ended last week.
No response. You're going to lose $8,000. You're going to finish in second place with $19,600.
The contestant made headlines and history, becoming the show's top female earner and only the 4th person to take home more than $1 million in prize money. She's also brought some much-needed representation to the iconic TV show as a member of the trans community.
Specifically to trans people out there, anything that you wanted to do before, you can still keep chasing those same dreams.
And with that, she posted this reminder on Twitter after wearing the pride flag pin on the show. I don't actually think about being trans all that often, and so when appearing on national TV, I wanted to represent that part of my identity accurately. As important, but also relatively minor.
You know, I'm Amy Schneider, the person that I was before and still am, and I just had, you know, a great run on Jeopardy, that's all.
Honestly, I'm so here for this.
I know, and congrats again to Amy. Huge.
Of course, and that is the end of this week's show. It is Andy Lawani signing off.
And I'm Cheryl Lazar. Thank you again for hanging out with us.
And be sure to catch us every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, live and always on demand, right here on Reverie.